CapitalOTB.com. The better choice.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Cassano, and Coyle for Bob Baffert and Martin Garcia wins the Santa Anita Sprint Championship by a head over capital account, also from Baffert. Amazombie hung badly late to finish fourth. Our final guest this morning is pointing 4 of his runners to this year's Breeders' Cup, including one who I like quite a bit. Joining us live via telephone from Florida, Mr. Mark Casse. Mark Cassano, welcoming you back to Down the Stretch.
Thank you, Mark.
Nice to have you back. Mark, let's begin with spring in the air in the Alcibiades. For our audience, she is 7th in between fillies in the Oxley gold and blue silks. Mark, talk about this big performance, if you would.
Well, I thought she was going to be a little closer. That was the plan. But Patrick was very confident on her, and he was sitting chilly. He started making a little bit of a move and got stopped, and I thought that was it for her. But she was able to overcome that, and she was impressive.
She had broken her maiden in her second start pretty impressively on the synthetic at Woodbine. I know they're 2 different surfaces, but still, you had to be pretty optimistic that she was going to handle the Keeneland strip.
I really, when you run in grade 1s, it's hard to be overly confident. But I was fairly confident. Or I thought handicapping the race and looking at the race that she was the horse to beat. And I was surprised when they made her 12-1 in the morning line. But you can't get by the bettors. They made her the favorite, and they were correct.
Now, Mark, you're going to the Juvenile Fillies with her, which will mark her first ever start on dirt. Your thoughts and your concerns about spring in the air going to dirt?
Well, I would be more concerned if we were going to run on a dirt such as Saratoga or Tampa. But I think the dirt at Santa Anita is a lot like the dirt at Churchill Downs. And I've always said, a horse that'll run on synthetic, one of the things they like about synthetic is that they don't get deep into the track surface. They kind of bounce across it. And that's my take on Santa Anita. So I don't think that's going to be a problem with her. She is going to have to, I don't know how she's going to handle getting hit with some dirt. But she's a really classy filly, and she has a lot of ability.
We just had a photo of her on the screen, and I'm going to ask our director, Patrick, to put that back up. As I ask you to take a moment, describe her from a physical standpoint for our audience, if you would.
Well, it's funny, because when I first bought her, I bought her in March at OBS, March. And I bought her more because of the way she moved and just the way she got over the ground. I usually grade them from 1 to 10, and I gave her a 10 as the way she moved over the ground. But to look at her, she was just very average looking. But as she's gotten older, she started to stretch a little bit, and she's not a big, robust horse, but she's an athlete, and she's really smart. It's funny. I actually also bid on Beckett of Privilege, who was I think in the April sale, and they are a little bit alike. In fact, Beckett of Privilege was quite as big as Spring in the Air at the time I was bidding on her.
Mark, let's move to your prospect for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, that being Dynamic Sky. For our audience, he is 7th on the outside at the top of the screen in the Breeders' Futurity. Very solid second in here, but he showed some greenness in the lane, and that may have cost him the victory. Talk about this effort.
Well, I think a couple. I think his. I went into the Breeders with a lot more concerns with him versus spring in the year. Simply one, he had only ran twice, and both were one turn. And, it's a big field. One thing these horses are learning, where a lot of the other races around North America have been really small fields, 5 and 6 horse fields. This is 14 horses. Couple things about him. One, he ended up that evening after the race, the Trackist people called me from Keeneland. He ran 72 feet farther than the winner. That's 9 lengths. And all that being said, had he not went to lugging in, turning for home, I think he still wins, even though he ran 72 feet farther. So I think everybody, I saw where Mike Watchmaker has him 20-1 in the morning line for the Breeders' Cup, and the horse that won the Breeders' Futurity 10-1. I don't see that. I think our horse was the best horse in the race. One of the problems when you run at Keeneland is that with the short stretch, you have to make your move a little earlier, and Lewis knew that. Had it been to the second wire, I think Lewis may have waited to make such a big run, and I'm not so sure our horse would have lugged in the way he did. He just came out of the turn and kind of slingshotted, and he started lugging in. If you'll see late, he switches to his right lead. It was very late, and then he runs straight. So he kept on his left lead a little long, and I think that caused him to lug in.
Mark, you'll be represented in the $5 million Breeders' Cup Classic by Pool Play. Just entering the screen here in last Saturday's Hawthorne Gold Cup, 32 lifetime starts, 2 on dirt. He's now 2 for 2. Talk about Pool Play, particularly on dirt.
Well, Pool Play is amazing for us because, Pool Play is a Canadian bred, and for a long time we mostly just race in Toronto, and where we run on synthetic and turf, and he had run a lot, and we had never felt like we wanted to get away to go run anywhere else. And I guess it was not last winter, but the winter before, we took him down to Palm Meadows, and he trained so well on the dirt, we decided at some point we wanted to try to get a dirt race in him. And we took him to Churchill, and he trained great, and he won the Stephen Foster. Right after the Stephen Foster, we shipped him to Saratoga, and he had a pretty bad tendon injury, which looked like it could, threaten his career. So we brought him home, back down to our training center, and gave him a bunch of time, and I had purposely not run him on the dirt yet this year. I was just trying to get a few races into him, get him up to his peak fitness. Bill Ferris kept saying, when can we run on the dirt? When can we run on the dirt? And after his last start at Arlington, I said to him, okay, we're ready for the dirt now. So, he ran a big race. He should improve, and I don't know of any other horse that's only made 2 starts on the dirt and would be a grade 1 and grade 2 winner.
And finally, Mark, to the filly who I really, really like, Spring Venture, on her way to the Juvenile Fillies turf. Here she is, I think, dominating the Natalma. For our audience, she is number 7 in the green silks. Mark, talk about this performance in particular, and talk about this wonderful filly.
This filly, Patrick Husbands, who rides her, just describes her as a freak. She had trained tremendous going into her first race, and she got in all kinds of trouble and won with ease. And then, I think the Natalma is coming back to be, this is a key race. It was a key race the year before. Stevens Kitten came out and won the Breeders' Cup. Stephanie's Kitten, I'm sorry. And, this is going to be a key race. And she did it with just pure ease. I mean, Patrick sat chilly till about the 3/16 pole when he was in traffic. I was a little concerned, and as soon as he found an opening, he let her run for about 100 yards and then shut her down. So she was impressive.
Now, Mark, I got to tell you, I was a little concerned with her victory in the Mazarin on synthetic last weekend. Not nearly as impressive as the Natalma. Is she doing okay? Is she better on turf? What are your thoughts about the Mazarin?
Well, I have to tell you, I only decided at 3 o'clock that afternoon to run her in the Mazarin. We had been having some issues. We had a bunch of our young horses that had kind of, through the 2 weeks previous, had spiked some temperatures, and some of them got sick, and some of them would only be sick for 24 hours. The morning of the race, she normally keeps about 100.5 temperature, 100.5, and her temperature was at 101.2. We took a blood on her, and the blood came back good. I was concerned that her temperature was on the rise. So we monitored it all afternoon, and at 3 o'clock it was still 101.2, which is a little high for her, but not too high. So we ran her. We decided to run her. She won that evening. I could see her in the picture. Her nostrils were really flaring, which that's not normal for her. And by that evening, at 7 o'clock, her temperature had risen to 104.2. So very high. So I was very concerned. We didn't treat her. We just gave her something to take her temperature down. And the next morning, she was perfect. And I think that she was just fighting something that day. So, and I have to tell you, my instructions to Patrick were that day, look, I'm not sure this filly's at her very best, so take good care of her and don't do any more than you have to do. But I wanted to get a 2-turn race into her, which we did. I don't think that was a true indication of her polytrack ability, but we're not going to take any chances. We're going to go to the turf. And the good news is she's in Louisville. She shipped down to Louisville to start getting ready because we're going to fly everybody out on the 28th, and she trained well this morning. So, she's fine. It was just something, a lot of our horses were going through it for a couple of weeks, and she just got it on the wrong day.
Well, thank you for that explanation. I now feel much, much better about that performance in the Mazarin. And Mark, thanks so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate it. All the best come Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday with your 4 starters, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Thank you so much, and I always enjoy talking with you guys.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Casse,
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen. All right. Time to thank our sponsor. This morning's program has been sponsored by Parting Glass Racing. And again, come Thursday evening, November 1st, Parting Glass will have their dinner and Breeders' Cup seminar at Vapor Nightclub at the Racino in Saratoga. Go to partingglassracing.com, click on Next Meeting, and you will see all the information for their Breeders' Cup seminar. Time to thank all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air here at our new studio at the Clubhouse Racebook at 711 Central Avenue. Brian Dorenzo, Mick Richards, and our associate producer, Julie Hoxie. Back in the control room in Schenectady, Pat Peretta directed. And